Welcome to the OBX Wave Report for Thursday, March 2nd. Wow, what an eventful week, and boy, am I scrambling to catch up with all the things. But I did get out on a couple of safaris up and down the Outer Banks this week, and I did want to share with you some of the beautiful video of the waves I got from yesterday, these large, what appear to be 3 to 7 foot waves across the Outer Banks. This footage provided from Rodanth, and right now as we're looking to the south, you can see the houses on Ocean Drive that are in peril of being washed away by the rising ocean. Here in the Outer Banks, the ocean rises at a rate of about 5 millimeters per year. This is driven by climate change, which is in turn driven by fossil fuel burning. Which is trapping heat in the atmosphere and melting the glaciers, causing the ocean to rise. But yesterday we had some amazing waves, just beautiful waves breaking off of Rodanth. You can just see them foamy, tall, splashing. No surfers out anywhere that I saw, so no one really out ready to brave the rough surf. I know there's surfers here with the ability to handle these conditions, but I didn't see many out braving the waves yesterday. And given that I'm a firm believer in the buddy system and that my skill level is not quite to the level to manage these on my own, I decided to also abstain, but much respect for those who did get out. I also understand that some of the local OBX surfers here, Brett in particular, have been putting out some amazing and fantastic video of waves from this summertime. I do want to mention, I mean, there's a lot of surfers that head here during the summer, but having surfed in the winter, now I think I'm on surf session 12 for this year so far. So for my winter surf, um, it's it is wild and woolly out there, guys. There are some great waves here in the Outer Banks in the winter time. So if you want to go and chase winter surf, Outer Banks is good. I mean, of course, if you're like a big wave surfer, um, like crazy big wave surfer, you're not going to be picking the Outer Banks. But the average wave height during winter time is like around 7 feet from what I understand. And this is not a surprise to me at all. I've just seen days of just amazing tall surf here on the Outer Banks in wintertime. And what I find interesting getting out in the water is I do run into a lot of Canadians that come down to the Outer Banks during wintertime. And to them, the water is warm. So I suppose all things are relative, right? I've been out here surfing in like my full suit and booties and gloves and thinking, I mean, if it gets down to like 46, that's like freezing cold to me, and lower 50s not fun. I got out at Avon earlier this week. Beautiful waves, beautiful surf. Um, Water temperatures were around 62, I believe. That felt really warm to me, but I was also in the full suit. So I did want to share with you this video of surf yesterday. God, look at that barrel. Beautiful. Oh man, just got, yeah, the Outer Banks barrels can really be something else. And one of the best places that I found for barrels is Avon, particularly at Avon Pier, just gorgeous barrels. Although those waves are tricky. I mean, they're fast, they're steep, and you've got to have, very like impeccable timing and balance and just getting the angle of your board just right to catch those waves and get those barrels down at Avon. So beautiful waves, but a challenge to catch those barrels. All right, so in any case, that's a little segment of the surf that I caught on safari yesterday up and down the Outer Banks. And today, let's talk about today. I think that today the wave conditions are going to be better than yesterday overall, meaning um, a little bit smaller, a lot glassier, and a little bit calmer. It looks like we've got a very consistent swell in the range of about 4, maybe 4.5, maybe 5 feet in the near offshore environment. And that's translating to mostly 3 to 5 foot waves along the coast. Maybe some larger waves where the swells are lining up just right and getting that like amplification as they hit the sandbars. But overall, like 4 foot, I would say average wave heights coming into the Outer Banks. I see most locations right now reporting between 3 and 5 foot waves. And we've also got rainy conditions in association with a storm system that's moving in from the west, but the winds are not yet strong. So with that rain and the milder wind speeds, with winds for the North Beach is right now pretty mild in the range of 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 15 miles per hour. As you head south, you get into more of the south wind, but for the more northerly beaches like Jeanette's Pier here, we've got calm conditions and rain, so it's likely very glassy down there. Looking at the geocolor composite, you can see all the clouds swirling across the US, just a very stormy picture for the US. A powerful storm system is expected to gather steam today and tomorrow over the Mississippi River Valley and track north and east. We're expected to get some weather from this, and then the frontal boundary is expected to go through on Friday and into Saturday, and then by Sunday, the winds are expected to turn around back to the northeast and will tend to get more in the way of good waves. So as we enter Friday, winds are supposed to pick up from the south and be strong, probably chop up the waves quite a bit. Although for those south-facing beaches, you're going to get some large choppy waves with those winds coming in from the south and west. And for the north beaches, mostly likely to be choppy and maybe blown out depending on the angle of the wind. All right, so getting into the National Weather Service radar picture, we do see that large mass of rain to our west in a frontal boundary, and it's just extending on. The precipitation is extending on through Texas with some winter precipitation and a lot of precipitation though in the Mississippi River Valley, and strong storm system expected to develop there. Here on the coast right now, it looks like we've got small craft advisories up. Let's see up. Oh, and the gale watch up. So small craft advisories and gale watches up ahead of the storm system, all up and down the coast. So I don't know. Maybe I should have added gale watch to the title for this video. Maybe I'll go back and say gale watch with good waves for most beaches. But yeah, in any case, we've got the gale watch up. The gale watch gale conditions, if they do show up, will likely be showing up by Friday. Not likely to see gale conditions today based on what I'm seeing in the weather reports. And then looking at the quantitative prediction forecast to just get an understanding of where the storms are most likely to fire across the US, it looks like we've got the weather subsiding a little bit for the US West Coast, but not by too much. Still likely heavy rains and snows for Southern California on northward through Washington and Oregon. And then for the central United States, we do have heavy precipitation, mostly in the form of rain, predicted for the Mississippi River Valley. And this is starting to get into the relatively intense variety. It looks like we might have upwards of 7 inches in some hot spots over the course of the next week. So this has just been consistent heavy rainfall region. So I'd start to look toward this area for flooding potential if this trend continues. All right. Oh, and well, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. And then for the US East Coast and the Outer Banks, we do have a tendency still for nor'easters to form off the coast, although for the Outer Banks, the precipitation precipitation predictions do not seem to indicate heavy precipitation overall for the coming 7 days. We'll see how things shape up. Okay, getting down to the local beaches, local observations. We provided to you by our wave monitors. We do have Jeanette's Pier right now with waves in the range of 3 to 5 feet with a primary swell at 4 feet coming in at 11 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 6 seconds. I would expect to see more surfers down at the beach today. more than zero. We shall see. We're going to head on down and get an observation, hopefully get in the water. I, um, I am pressed for time just as every other surfer in the world is. So, but we shall see if we can get in the water today. Um, we have wind speeds right now at 8 miles per hour out of the west, which is an offshore flow. Light rain, cloudy and or light rain, all seem to be contributing to glassy conditions. I will note that the wave monitors right now are all showing up in the green and showing up in like giving starred ratings for the surf conditions there at Jeanette's Pier. Looks like mostly two-starred green ratings at Jeanette's Pier. So waves looking pretty good at Jeanette's Pier right now. Uh, Air temperatures in the range of about 55 degrees. Ocean water temperature's been holding steady for the past few days at 52, so it's still pretty cold, but not as cold as it has been. Weather conditions cloudy, spotty rain, expected high of 62. We'll see if we get up to 62 today. And I'm going to go on down south. I just will note that most of the east-facing beaches here on the Outer Banks are experiencing wave heights in the range of 3 to 5 feet. And this is also true at S turns. We're going to do an observation at S turns for today, just south of Oregon Inlet. Waves in the range of 3 to 5 feet with that primary 4-foot swell coming in at 11 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 6 seconds. Winds out of the west-northwest at 13 miles per hour, so a little stronger wind down there at S turn. Still offshore. I don't think that's strong enough to get rid of any glassiness or blow out any of those waves. Air temperature 59 degrees, ocean water temperature 57. So rather warm actually, just a short hop over the Oregon Inlet Bridge and you got 5-degree warmer water temperatures. And it does appear that just generally water temperatures, at least for the mid-coastal regions, are warming up a bit as we get into March. We'll see how that trend continues. Hopefully it will, and we'll get warmer water conditions as we continue on into March. Weather conditions at S turns right now, clouds, rain, expected high of 59. Interestingly cooler, but possibly due to just a larger water influence generally on the weather conditions down there at S turns. And I will note that wave conditions at Rodanthe are in the monitors looking about the same as S turns, so 4-foot swell coming in from the east at 11 seconds and 3 to 5 foot waves there on the coast at Rodanthe and at Avon as well. Similar conditions, 3 to 5 foot waves. 4-foot, 11-second swell coming from the east and also likely relatively glassy conditions, although probably a little bit windier down there at Avon. All right, and I'm going to head on down south for a last observation at Buxton, which is another east-facing beach. We'll note that Billy Mitchell right now, actually, we'll just talk briefly about Billy Mitchell. So the south-facing beach right now is seeing 3-foot waves, so smaller waves on the south-facing beaches right now. The waves on the south-facing beaches, though, will tend to pick up as we head on into Friday with those southerly winds starting to pick up ahead of the front. And at Buxton, though, we've got reported 4 to 6 foot waves. Now, the primary swell coming in at 11 seconds is about the same height at Buxton as everywhere else, but looks like the waves are maybe just lining up a little bit better at Buxton than on the other beaches. I did see some indicators earlier of possible 7-foot waves at Buxton, so maybe it's 4 to 7. I'm going to say 4 to 6. If you're at the beach down there at Buxton, shoot me a note and tell me whether or not it's 4 to 7 or 4 to 6. But in any case, primary swell coming in at 11 seconds, secondary swell coming in from the south at 7 seconds. And I believe that secondary swell is actually a bit larger. I'm starting to see some of that influence from those south winds. Winds right now at Buxton out of the west-southwest at 18 miles per hour, starting to get a little strong there. Might be a little choppy down there at Buxton with those 18-mile-an-hour winds. And out of the west-southwest, that is offshore flow, so that will tend to hollow out the waves there down at Buxton. Weather conditions right now at Buxton, air temperature and ocean water temperature the same at 62 degrees Fahrenheit. A little bit cooler waters at Buxton today than yesterday. I think some of those Gulf Stream waters are getting pushed offshore by those westerly winds. And the weather conditions for today at Buxton, clouds, rain, high 65 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to look briefly at the long range forecast, and folks, it does not look very good as far as warm conditions go for March. I am very disappointed in you, trough. It looks like we are expected to see a trough by mid-March, dominating most of the most of the United States, with a big trough in the jet stream dipping down, producing colder and cooler than normal temperatures for most of the United States by mid-March. This on the front side of a large high pressure system out over the Pacific that's looks like it's going to generate this huge dip in the jet stream over most of the United States. And with that dip does come some storminess. And so it looks like we're expected to see above normal precipitation, above normal storminess for most of the United States, with a hot spot over here back in California. Looks like California is under the gun again for some potentially severe weather in mid-March. And then here for the U.S. Southeast, above normal precipitation as well. We might see a nor'easter or two in mid-March with this big trough digging in. It's just a question of how that Atlantic moisture gets involved with that large dip in the jet stream that is predicted by the Climate Prediction Center. Now, you can take some of these forecasts with a grain of salt because we are a little bit further out, but Climate Prediction Center tends to be relatively accurate. So we'll keep an eye on things, see how things shape up. And then also looking at the Storm Prediction Center for convective outlooks. This is more for the near-term forecast for severe thunderstorms. It does appear that there's a risk of severe thunderstorms today over parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Alabama, Western Tennessee. So for those of you out there, please stay tuned to your local emergency weather statements. And if you have to respond to powerful thunderstorms, hail, or tornadoes, please be ready to do so. There's a moderate risk of severe storms out in a relatively large region today in association with a powerful storm system that's getting stronger over the south and central U.S. And then for tomorrow, some enhanced risk of severe weather for the U.S. Southeast and parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. So please keep your eyes tuned to the local weather statements as well. All right, so getting into the global forecast system model for today, I do want to note that there is a strong low pressure system right now over Texas, which is projected to track north and eastward. And I'm going to go ahead and advance this model and show you how this thing is projected to strengthen. So right now we got a 991 millibar low. It's expected to dip down to the 980s later today and early into Friday. And then by afternoon on Friday, we expect to see a 977 millibar system over the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. That's a rather strong storm system, which might produce some intense severe weather. I would definitely keep an eye on the weather forecast as if I was in, for example, a swath from Texas all the way up through the Great Lakes here. It looks like we could experience everything from severe thunderstorms to severe winter weather conditions along this swath. So something to keep an eye on with that powerful weather system. Strong winds and severe weather looks like it's expected. Just looking at the global forecast system model, I recommend you check out the weather experts on this system and stay tuned. By Saturday, the storm is expected to be sweeping offshore, although lingering effects through Saturday and into Sunday for the U.S. Northeast. And then we get the system offshore, which is expected to pump some waves in here to the Outer Banks. Worth noting that the U.S. West Coast is also getting a continuous barrage of storms coming in from the Pacific. All right, and now let's get down to the coastline and look at our wave models here for the Outer Banks. And I just want to show you what the swell is doing in the near offshore environment. It looks like swell in the range of 4 to 6 feet in the near offshore environment. Swell primarily coming in from the east for most of the Outer Banks, although we are starting to see a little bit of a southerly swell for Ocracoke, for example. And it does seem, if I look at some of the buoys, that some of that southerly swell might even be starting to wrap around Buxton. But for the most part, swell coming in from the north and east, a decent sized swell in the range of 4 to 6 feet today. And in my opinion, just based on these observations and what I saw at the coastline yesterday, we're going to see beautiful waves throughout the day today and probably into early to midday tomorrow. So by the time we get into tomorrow, it does look like that easterly swell does maintain by midday tomorrow or early to midday tomorrow. Let's see, let's get, yeah, see, even maintaining in through midday tomorrow. So it does look like the swell for Friday actually is going to be pretty darn good throughout the day. And we don't really start to see that southerly influence until later in the day. So this is good. This is good for waves tomorrow. I did want to kind of get a little bit more of a granular notion of what was going to happen on Friday, and it does look like Friday is going to be a good wave day again. I actually, now let's look at winds. I do want to, yeesh. Okay, so I see what's happening here. It does look like the winds do intensify ahead of the storm system coming in from the east, um, which actually might be, let's look at the wind speed in miles per hour. Ooh, 23, that's pretty strong. So we got like 15 to 20-mile-an-hour winds coming out of the east predicted for tomorrow at 1 p.m. Let's back this up to morning. Yeah, so relatively decent wind speeds coming in from the east ahead of the front, which is there's like a front coming. First, there's a front coming in from the south, and then there's going to be a front coming in from the west. So there's like a warm front coming out ahead of this storm. And north of the warm front, we got easterly winds. And this warm front will likely be pushing in that swell that we see, and swell in the range of 4 to 5 feet in the early morning. Um, I don't know, 15 to 20-mile-an-hour easterly winds doesn't sound too bad. So we'll see. We actually might see the swell pump up tomorrow coming in from the east a little bit. And it does look like that happens by the time we get into the 1 o'clock time frame with wave heights in the near shore environment in the range of 4 to 6 feet. So, but just generally speaking, it looks pretty good. If we get some rain and those winds aren't too strong, we might have some beautiful waves out there, or it could be wild and woolly. So we'll see. As we get later into the day, the warm front moves up, and then we get those southwesterly winds. And then as we get into the day on Saturday, we've got strong southwesterly winds coming in through the night and pushing up a big swell from the south. So looks like a 7 to 8 foot swell for the south-facing beaches, and then for the north-facing beaches, a swell in the range of about 5 to 7 feet. Not certain if this swell is going to be blown offshore. We do have westerly winds, so looks like a lot of that swell for the north-facing beaches might be blown offshore as we get smaller waves on Saturday. But then on Sunday, what's going to happen is the front is going to head offshore, and then we'll start to get that northeasterly flow again. And it does look like actually a pretty nice wave day for Sunday with significant wave heights offshore in the range of 3 to 4.5 feet. And just looking at the winds, winds coming out of the north. So probably a colder wind, colder day on Sunday, but the winds are, it looks like between 15 and 20 miles per hour, might not be too strong. Let's check as we get later in the day. Might be a good afternoon day as we get like into the 2 and 3 o'clock hours as the winds tamp down and become calmer, and likely as the ocean surface might glass out a little bit. And all right, so let's go back to the ocean and look at the wave models. And then I want to look as we get into the day on Monday. Yep, the swell orientation shifts more toward the east, and we got a 3 to 4 foot swell coming in from the east, with lighter winds, looks like. Yeah, just very light winds coming in from the south. And temperatures on Wednesday, relatively cool in the 50s, but not crazy cool. So air temperatures looks like in the lower to middle 50s for most of the other banks on Monday. And then I don't know if our wave monitor goes out to Tuesday. Nope, it does not. All right, so a comprehensive view of wave conditions for the other banks over the coming days through Monday. I'd say overall looks like really good waves. We'll have to see how conditions line up. Waves are just notoriously hard to predict, but I'm getting more of a handle on it as I travel and as I look at the various models. And so I think that these predictions are starting to come more and more into play as we look at conditions. So thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report, this March 2nd session. We are going to do a brief video on what the climate scientists are chatting about because we are here to advocate for coastal defense. And as I typically say at the end of my wave reports, please do everything you can to help speed the transition to clean energy. Clean energy being wind, water, solar, and electric vehicles. These clean energy systems will help defend our coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. The primary threats to the coastlines being rising sea levels driven by thermal expansion of the oceans and melting glaciers, which is in turn driven by the excess heat in the atmosphere trapped by fossil fuel burning, and then the more powerful storms that are fueled by heat, particularly at the ocean surface for the coastline, but also excess heat over land and in evaporation over land, helping to provide that convective lift that helps to fuel storms. So thank you for joining me